Alright guys, today I'll be ranking every coaster at Hersheypark. This is definitely one of the best coaster lineups in the world. In fact, out of the parks I've been to, it's the second best coaster lineup I've experienced, just behind Cedar Point, which is pretty much impossible to beat. They've got 14 coasters, with some of them being the greatest of all time, but of course some of them are on the weaker side, so we're going to rank them all up right now. Coming in at number 14 is Coco Cruiser. This is just your normal Zamperla gravity coaster. It's pretty boring. It's a 1 out of 10. It's a very mild kiddie coaster. Moving on. Coming in at number 13 is the next most mild ride here. It's Trailblazer. I get that this is a nice old classic Aero mine train, but that being said, it's definitely one of the weaker ones, and I think its time here could be running out. It's older, and it's really just not that popular anymore. Coming in at number 12, I know some of you might not like this one. It's Super Duper Looper. I think it's a fine ride. It's like a 4 out of 10 for me. But that being said, it's basically just Trailblazer but with a vertical loop. I personally don't think the vertical loop's even that intense. I don't get too many positives. But that being said, Super Duper Looper's definitely a nice fun family coaster that pretty much anyone can ride. It's definitely not too intense for the little ones. Coming in at number 11 is Laugh Track. This is a very forceless ride. I mean, I have Whirlwind at my home park, and if you've seen my top 50, you know Whirlwind is in there, because it is a balls-to-the-wall intense ride. But this has so many profiling differences, and it is trimmed to death the entire time, so you get pretty much no forces the entire ride. It feels more like a dark ride, and that is also because the theming on this is really good. I was surprised when I re-rode this during Christmas Candy Lane, and I know they have a holiday overlay, but even the normal version is really cool, but the holiday version is also really well themed. Coming in at number 10 is Jolly Rancher Remix. This is a basic Vekoma boomerang, but with a few enhancements. You've got good theming as well as those vest restraints. It's definitely not anything too special, but I feel like these boomerangs are pretty underrated. Coming in at number 9 is Lightning Racer. I do think Thunderside is slightly better than Lightning, but it's very close. These are pretty mild wooden coasters. The racing aspect is definitely fun, but you only get a few moments of good airtime, and there's not really any laterals, and at times the pacing feels weak. Coming in at number 8 is one that I re-rode for the first time in 7 years just a few days ago, and this is Wild Mouse. Oh my god, is this one of the best rides for laterals. You get thrown around this cart so hard. If you're not bracing yourself, you're just going to be completely folded over. There's a couple floater pops here and there, but this ride's really about the laterals. And I get some people think that's painful, but I really appreciate the violence. Coming in at number 7 is Great Bear. This is a mid-tier, lower-tier B&M invert. But that being said, it's definitely not a bad ride. It's a great ride. You've got one of the most creative layouts ever, specifically with how the supports are designed, because they couldn't go into the creek. So just watching how the supports work is really cool to see, especially from Super Duper Looper's queue. It's a pretty intense ride, decent positive Gs, decent laterals, just all the good stuff you'd expect from a B&M invert, but it's a mid-tier one for sure. Coming in at number 6 is Fahrenheit. I used to really like this ride, but I feel like it's gotten a little less special over the years. But that being said, you've still got a great first drop. You've got some really fun inversions, including that Norwegian loop, which is very underrated, and then you've got one last ejector pop before the brakes. It's definitely a fun ride, but there's 5 others that I like more in the park. Coming in at number 5 is Candemonium. This is my second least favorite B&M hyper I've done, but that being said, it's still definitely a fun ride. You've got a ton of great floater hills, including that 5-second floater hill, and the middle of the ride is really where it shines, because in Christmas Candy Lane, they do not turn the trims on for that second big camelback, so you actually get some pretty strong airtime over that, as well as the speed hill. That's definitely the highlight of the ride. The ending's definitely the weakest of any of the B&M hypers, except maybe Thunder Striker, but that being said, it's still a nice fun ride that cracks my top 70 overall. Coming in at number 4 is one of the most underrated coasters I've done. It's Comet. I absolutely love this thing. It was slightly better with the buzz bars, I'll admit, but that being said, if you can get some room with these PTC ratcheting restraints, it's still an amazing ride. You get a few really good ejector pops, and the laterals on this are also underrated. It's not that rough, which, if you know me, is kind of a downside, But that being said, Comet is still a very aggressive coaster that should not be overlooked when you come to Hersheypark. Coming in at number 3 is Storm Runner. You've got a really intense hydraulic launch on this thing. I mean, it's the closest thing you've got to King Dakar Top Thrill Dragster, at least on the East Coast. I mean, Accelerator, Stealth, whatever. Those might be more intense, but this is still really fun. Definitely reminds you of King Dakar a bit. And then you've got that top hat, which is really good airtime on that. But the best part of the ride is honestly the flying snake dive. You get some really good airtime going up into it, and then the laterals on the actual barrel roll itself are very good. You definitely get whipped around on that. Coming in at number 2 is Sky Rush. I definitely think it is worse with the new restraints if you don't know how to ride it. But if you do know how to ride it with the new restraints, then it's pretty much on par with the old experience. If you know how to get room past the first drop, which from what I've heard, I'm like the only person who does know, then you are in for a treat on those first 2 camelbacks, because those are some of the greatest moments of ejector ever. They are sustained and they are powerful beyond all belief. And the first drop is still the best first drop I've done. Nowadays, if you want laterals on this ride, you're going to have to lean forward on those stangle dives and that S-hill, but it's worth it. Definitely just lean forward. Doesn't take any effort or anything. So overall, Sky Rush is still easily a top 10 coaster for me. Coming in at number 1 is Wildcat's Revenge. I mean, it shouldn't really be too much of a surprise if you know me. This is kind of my number 0 coaster. I know it sounds really weird given I live 4.5 hours away from here, but trust me, Wildcat's Revenge meant a lot to me when it opened, and it is one of the world's greatest coasters, top 10 in the world worthy. I mean, it's got some of the craziest ejector airtime ever. It's got a phenomenal layout, it's got bonkers laterals, and overall, it easily earned that top 5 spot in my rankings. So that is how I rank every one of Hersheypark's 14 coasters. Let me know what you guys thought of this video down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.